Hey guys, so we've had several nationals happen in multiple countries, so thought I'd go over some of the most played hand traps and staples as usual, with hopes that this will help those of you who'll be playing at YCS Hartford this weekend. Now I just want to thank Bold Spider once again for going through various online domains to find as many topping deck lists as possible and sharing them with me, so I'll link our YouTube channel below, so make sure to check Bold Spider out. So since Konami doesn't officially post all of the topping lists, we basically have to go with what players share themselves. So in total, we had 33 deck lists that were included for this video, and this is the breakdown of the decks included. Now keep in mind that certain hand traps or staples may be more likely to be played in certain decks, so this can certainly be influenced by whichever decks were more publicly available online and included in this video, so make sure to keep that in mind. At least the representation of the decks included still seems pretty legit, with Branded Despia variants taking the top slot followed by Swordsoul, which are basically what people expected at this point. A lot of one-ofs as well, like Mech Knight, Pendulum Magician, and Punk Synchro, which is exciting to see a lot of variety. As to which nationals these deck lists are coming from, here's the rundown, with almost half of them coming from Bolivia and Ecuador nationals, and a few from Sweden, Ireland, Austria, Spain, and El Salvador. As for the deck size among the topping list, looks like we are back to lists going closer to 40, and this is usually the case for Branded Despia, Floowandereeze, and Swordsoul. Barely any 60 card pile decks anymore, unlike what we saw for YCS Charlotte. Now to do an overview on hand traps, this range from 0 to 14 in the main with a median of 6 hand traps, so we are on a continuing declining trend in the hand trap count. If you look at it as a proportion relative to their main deck size, the hand traps range from 0 to 34% of the deck with a median of 15%, which again is a slight decline in trend since the last YCS. In the side, this range from 0 to 11 hand traps with a median of 3, which is just about the same as the last YCS. As for traditional going second board breaking cards, this range from about 0 to 9 cards in the main with a median of 3 cards, right about the same as the last format's YCS, and in terms of proportions, the median was about 7%, which is ever so slightly higher than the last time. As for the number of board breakers in the side though, this ranged from 1 to 13 cards with a median of 5, slightly down from a median of 6 cards in the side from the last YCS. Now let's cover the most played hand traps and staples as usual, and as always, Ash Blossom continues to reign supreme as the most played hand trap. Although interestingly, 25 of the 33 available lists played it, meaning that there was actually a good handful that wasn't running this card. Really good right now because of the explosion of branded decks and can hit a lot of cards in general. At second is DD Crow, which is the highest this card has ever placed, also becoming popular to get rid of that target for Branded in red, and perhaps becoming more popular than Ghost Bell, because if they have Branded lost on the field, then they wouldn't be able to respond with Bell, but you can with Crow. Lots of Eldlich decks right now too, so banishing that Golden Lord is just absolutely delicious. At third is Nibiru, which I personally was surprised to see it this high. Considering that this card isn't good against Branded Despia or Floowandereeze, didn't think I'd see it this high again, but I guess the card is always good against any other combo decks available, so it's nice, and as you can see, the card was mainly sided, so it's no longer a common main deck hand trap staple. After that we have Infinite Impermanence, which certainly is the opposite and is in fact a main deck staple, and not really a card that's sided. The card is very versatile and good against most decks, although becomes essentially useless against pure Eldlich strategies. Then we have Token Collector, which is still popular, especially with Swordsoul becoming really popular again, even though the Brave Token Engine decks have declined in play. This card is honestly busted if you have it against the right matchups, and one deck was even main decking the card. Next we have Veiler, not too much to say about this card other than that it provides yet another monster effect negate and has benefits for certain strategies. I can use this to link climb to Celine and go into Access Code Talker. After that we have Bell, which has fallen off since the last time I did this top cut breakdown. Still a good card and has its pros and cons versus DD Crow, but up to you on which you prefer, or maybe you just decide to fit in both. And then we have Lancia, which basically has come back slightly after falling in favor recently. Not sure how I feel about this card right now. I do feel that it's not as impactful as it once was. Next we have Droll, which has also been falling in favor recently, but we do have Ben 10 back at 2, so maybe people might play Droll more in case the deck comes back to being one of the meta favorites. It can be good against Flunder too, but if they have Shifter then you sadly can't play Droll. Speaking of Shifter, we have that at our number 10 spot, although of course only certain decks can play this card, but if they can, it is probably the strongest hand trap out there and really just ends turns on its own. Alright, so we're going to cover the top 15 most played side deck staples this time instead, since there's a lot of them. And number 1 is Call by the Grave, which is predominantly played in the main technically, but regardless, it's a strong card that's not just about stopping hand traps anymore, but just really impactful against any decks that rely on a key card activating or recurring from grave. Tied for number 1 spot is Dimensional Barrier, which we saw from the last YCS breakdown that it's become an incredibly popular side deck choice due to the rise in Branded Despia, but now with returning popularity of Swordsoul, this card can be great against that as well. Next we have Twin Twisters, which has recently become the back row removal of choice due to its quick play nature and can be great against decks like Flunder that requires their trap to be activated in the main phase. And another quick play spell is Forbidden Droplet, which is predominantly played in the main deck with about half of the list playing this card. Really good versus most decks, although of course under Shifter you can't activate this card, so that's one downside in this current format. Another back row hate card is Red Reboot, with one Madman even main decking this card. A lot of Eldlich decks again lately due to the buff it got with the Branded engine, and no one likes Scale Drain, so Red Reboot is best against any trap deck. Then another back removal in Harpy's Feather Duster, which actually sees a good amount of main deck play as well since there's no restrictions on this card to activate it. Really a blowout card against back row strategies. After that we have Super Polymerization, which most decks main decking this card are probably Branded Despia, just a ridiculously strong card that cannot be responded to, and it's a good out to most Branded end boards. Speaking of Branded, that is the reason why Anti-Spell Fragrance has been increasing in popularity in the side deck, with a third of the available topping list playing this card. Such an old card, but still very powerful. This card not only can prevent you from doing your main deck plays, but also slows down any back row removal that you were going to use if you didn't draw a quick play version instead. After that is the increasing popularity of Necroral Banshee, and related to that also Zombie World. This card can be easily foolish through Branded Fusion since Banshee is a dark, and you can quick effect banish it from the grave to activate Zombie World, which can be quite problematic for deck like Flunder since they won't be able to tribute summon, although they can still tribute set. The card is strong against Swordsoul too since it changes everything to zombies. Related to Flunder and Swordsoul hate is there can be only one, a really strong floodgate that really hinders a lot of decks since most meta archetypes nowadays are always of the same type. Although a deck like Branded Despia actually has several different typings, so for example Mirror Jade is a worm, so I personally found this card to be pretty weak against that deck at least. Then we have Evenly Match, which can just be a blowout and is quite good right now and becomes especially devastating if your opponent has a token on the field and they're forced to keep the token if they can't negate it. Then we have another board wipe in Lightning Storm, which is flexible at hitting both monsters and back row. Can't go wrong with either this or Evenly Match. Next we have yet another back row removal in Cosmic Cyclone, which while banishing is strong is not as popular as Twin Twisters at the moment because it cannot hit as many back row cards at once, and Flunder is usually setting more than one card. Being able to banish Eldlich traps is nice though at least. After that we have Change of Heart, a card that recently came off the ban list after so many years. No restrictions to playing this card, so I'm sure many players were eager to try it out, so I'm curious to see whether this hype will stick and if this card will start seeing more play or maybe fall in favor soon enough. And lastly we have Triple Tactics Talents, which can sort of do what Change of Heart can but more, although of course with more restrictions in terms of being able to use the card. Pretty strong right now since Branded Despia and Flunder activate effects on your main phase, and Swordsoul likely will as well. Alright guys, so that was it for the breakdown of the most played hand traps and staples from the few nationals that took place in the last week. Hope that was helpful. If you're playing at YCS Hartford, best of luck and hope this video helped you prepare for it even just a little bit. As always, I want to thank my patrons for their continued support, and if you're interested in joining, the link is down below in the description. Take care guys.